o'clock sharp, and so I'm going to go ahead and kick us off this evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. Tonight's virtual open house is presenting the I-70B First Street and Grand Avenue Improvement Project. This scheduled to begin mid-May. I'm Tracy Truelove, and I'm the Public Information Manager for the project. And tonight I'm joined by the project team members who are Katie Clark, the CDOT Region 3 Grand Junction Resident Engineer, Elise Thatcher, the CDOT Region 3 Communications Manager, Damian Leba, the CDOT I-70B Project Engineer, and United Companies Project Manager Matt Schmidt, and United Companies Construction Manager Adam Lynch. And so what we're going to do to start off is we're going to run through a short project slide deck, and then after we're done with the deck, we're going to open it up to questions. And I'll share with you now how that's going to work, but I'll also remind you again when we get to that place is that we have the ability to comment in the chat feature. And if you want to comment, I can very easily go in and we can have you come on screen, or if you just want to write in your question to the chat, we can also moderate it and cover it from that direction. So I will be sure to bring those housekeeping notes up again. Want to also remind everyone to please mute if you haven't. Our wonderful Jennifer, who's helping us run our Zoom tonight, will mute us if it gets a little bit too noisy, but it's a little bit of a challenge if you have background noise happening. So with that said, I'm going to share my screen and start the presentation. Okay. Well, hold on. Oops. So just to kick us off tonight, we're going to have, again, Katie Clark, the Region 3 Grand Junction Resident Engineer, talk about the overall scope of the project. So Katie, over to you.
Great, thanks, Tracy. Thank you so much for everybody joining us today. I'd like to kind of start off with just summarizing kind of the extent of our work here so we all know what to expect for the final configuration. A lot of the project benefits are key to us moving forward and everybody having some buy-in. The roadway will be widened, adding additional turn lanes and through lanes to address some of the deficiencies within the corridor space. We'll be also adding access consolidation to reduce the direct access or in some locations full access onto the main primary corridor of I-70B and State Highway 340. We'll be improving the street connections connected to those two primary roadways to meet drivers' expectations, such as reducing the 5-lane intersection at First and Grand and reducing it down to a 4-lane intersection, as well as realigning North First Street to a T'd intersection and installing 2-way streets rather than the 1-way streets that exist within the general area. One other key aspect will be separation of the traffic and the multimodal pieces with some disconnected sidewalks with additional enhancements to improve the bike and pedestrian experience throughout the corridor and connecting some of the frequent paths between State Highway 340 and North First Street and on into the city corridor. We look to also improve the utility infrastructure on this project, which includes storm drains, system replacement and upgrades, and relocating some of the overhead lights out of the pedestrian walkways. And finally, we'll be doing some beautification of the project by adding additional landscaping and lighting throughout the corridor. If you can go to the next slide, please. So this is a general timeline of what we anticipate for the project. We will be breaking ground come May, and we'll continue on with traffic shifts, et cetera, until mid-November. At that point, we'll be starting a winter shutdown period between December and February. Following that winter shutdown period, we will transition back into construction starting in February and hope to be out of everybody's way come May so everyone can enjoy the new infrastructure.
Thanks, Katie. I'm going to go ahead and jump in here and talk about the phases of the project. So really the first phase is going to tackle that water line and storm drain removal installation. And after I get off this slide, I'll be able to show you the map that kind of walks through where this location is. So So we'll have demolition of sidewalks, curb and gutter. We'll have, clearing and grubbing for landscaping, removal of guardrails, walls, and asphalt already there, demolition of concrete features, and grading and excavating. And during this first phase, you'll see intermittent lane closures. Now, if you look down here at the timeline, one of the things we are instigating, and I'm going to installing, and I'm going to show that in the next slide, is a temporary roundabout. And I'm going to repeat the word temporary because we had questions come up recently about that. But the roundabout is going to be in place to help traffic flow during the construction phase of the project. And that is going to start to be built out in late June. And really, the phase one of the project is May through July. All right, so this is a map that kind of helps you see the phases once we move out of phase one and into phase 2 and 3, when that temporary traffic roundabout is in place during construction. And the purple area up here is what we're calling phase 2. And then the yellow area down here is what we're calling phase 3. And again, I should remind, this is a lot of information in a slide deck. And so we will post this slide deck after the virtual open house tonight on our project webpage. And I'm also going to share with you how to get to that project webpage. So what goes into phase 2 and 3? So that purple and yellow part of the map. More utility work should actually potentially be done by this phase. It's still kind of the same work is happening: demolition of sidewalks, curb and gutter, reconstruction of the intersection to square alignment, which again, Katie kind of showed you that overview map. And when we open it up for questions, we can go back and look at that again. We have, again, more removal of items already in place, and asphalt and concrete paving. Now, traffic impacts. One in particular we want to point out is there will be a temporary closure of North 1st Street just below Chipeta Avenue. And during that closure, the actual identified alternate route is going to be Gunnison to 4th Street, where the light is located. You'll also see a lot of traffic impacts head-to-head lane configuration that will flow into the temporary roundabout. And again, I can go back to that map. The roundabout is located in that west component of the project. And that's looking like we move into phase 2 and 3 late July, early August, with the potential of going into a winter shutdown. And again, that winter shutdown, could probably be scheduled around December, January, with us coming back in February. And also, though, the team will look at what weather is happening in Grand Junction and make a decision on that as we get closer as well. Because there's a chance if we can keep doing some work, we would talk about continuing to move forward. And I should just jump in here real quick. Adam, have I missed anything in that comment, or do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think you've covered it, Tracy.
So moving out of phase 2 and 3 will put us into constructing the temporary roundabout, but just in a different location. And that's what this map is going to show you. So we're really just flip-flopping. The temporary roundabout had been here. It'll flip over here to the east side of the project limits. And that moves us into phase 4 and 5. So phase 4 being this blue section and green being phase 5. And I'll take you to the next slide to talk about what that looks like. So a lot of the similar work, but again, will have been done with the storm drain and water line. And again, we're just doing a lot of reconstruction and building out the new alignment there in that location. And the idea behind the temporary roundabout, and some of you that are local will recognize we used a temporary roundabout on a pretty impactful project on 340 years ago, is just to keep traffic moving. And it is going to slow people down, but we honestly want people to slow down through the work zone. I mean, we've got a lot of people out there, a lot of moving parts, a lot of equipment. We just really want people to think about slowing down as they're going through that. We also want to encourage you to continue to visit the businesses. One of the things about the project is we do keep access to business open. Sometimes the access might be changed, but it will be on us to communicate what those changes could be. And that's again why we really will encourage you to engage with the project throughout its construction phase. Adam, Matt, anything to add in phase 4 and 5?
No, I think that, I guess one thing I would add is that it may look a little confusing how the phasing bleeds together, but all of that is based on trying to keep the project moving forward. So it's very likely that we could be finishing work in one phase while another phase is starting. So just keep that in mind when reading the information off the slides. If it looks like the phasing does run together, it very well could and probably should, just to keep everything flowing nicely.
That's a great point, Adam. Thank you for adding that. So let's talk about how to connect to the project. We have a project hotline for any questions or concerns you have that come up, and that's 970-309-1865. We also have a project email dedicated, and I have it here on the screen, but I'll read it out. It's I-70B 1ST, so first, grand, GRAND @gmail.com. And then I would encourage anyone who's got their phone sitting nearby, if you take your phone out and get on your camera, you can actually take a photo of this QR code or scan this QR code, and it'll link you directly to our website. And then you can bookmark the website, because anything we put out for public information, we will have loaded onto that website for public consumption. So that went super fast, but that also gives us the opportunity to open it up for questions. And again, what I'd love to do is, if you have a question and you want to put it into the chat pane, I can start with that. Or you also, for those of you who know how to use the raise your hand function on Zoom, can raise your hand and I can go take a look at the participants and call or have you unmute. But we also already have a great question, so I'm going to open it up to the team. I'm going to stay on this slide for a minute longer so people can take down the project information and how to connect with us. Then I'll probably come back to the team. So this is kind of open to all of you. Once completed, how is the project going to help pedestrian and bicycle use of the corridor?
I can answer that one, Tracy. So that's a great question. To kind of clarify, if you are familiar with the area of First and Grand today, there are really not great facilities for a sidewalk path connecting and crossing that roadway today. There are limited ADA curb ramps, et cetera. And so with the project, we will be making a connection in all 4 quadrants of the intersection of that space, and making a lot more open field with 8-foot sidewalks where we can fit it in. So people will feel much more comfortable walking or riding along that roadway along that larger upgraded sidewalk.
Great. We have a very small chat window. That's my one question right now. So I'm going to open it up to anyone who wants to put any questions into the chat. The other place, if you have a question and you weren't able to put it in with us tonight, is if you'll send it to the project email. Again, I still have the connection information up on the screen. We had a very robust public meeting yesterday that we were able to have outside on the project limits, and we had a lot of great questions come in there. So if there's any other questions, keep filling it up. Let me go to my participant screen and make sure I'm not missing anybody that wants to raise their hand. Okay, another great question. How will adjacent businesses cope with access during the project?
I'll take that one too, I guess. I'm going to hog all the questions. So it's in our language of our contract to have the contractor provide access, full access to those businesses. One example of this would be in the North First Street closure. There are some businesses on the southern end of the roadway that will not have the full access they once had during construction, but we will ensure that the contractor has adequate signage to express that the businesses will have full open access to their businesses during business hours. And we will definitely make sure we have the adequate traffic control to help people navigate the corridor to make those access movements.
Great, thank you, Katie. I'm actually going to stop sharing and come back to the team. Make sure I don't miss any hand raising. Another thing I think we want to just mention is that often in projects this size and this impactful, it takes a while for the traffic to get into a rhythm. And a lot of times what we'll see is people start, especially locals who have familiarity with the area, they'll find other ways around the project unless they want to specifically visit a business. And again, we really encourage folks to continue visiting the businesses in that downtown core. Because again, the team, as Katie just mentioned, will work to keep access open. Sometimes access might be changed to a business than you're normally used to, but again, it's always been part of CDOT's goals to keep access to businesses open and keep businesses in business. So let me just check. I'll tell you what, this has been the quietest chat I've ever been on, which might be a good thing. Maybe I should throw it out to the team. Is there something that we didn't hit on that we feel is important to share out as public information?
It might be good to kind of hit on any of our frequent questions we had during the in-person public engagement, Tracy. I know that we got a lot of questions in how people will be able to navigate with the reconfiguration of the intersection space. So it might be good to go to that slide and let people kind of just be able to look at the roadway itself of what the line work, if you will, what we're presenting, and I can kind of express what those changes are.
Perfect.
So we'll start at North First Street. A lot of questions have come up because there is that kind of dog leg coming off of the First and Grand intersection that allows people to just come right off of the First and Grand intersection and get onto North First Street northbound. One significant change that we have for this project is omitting that northbound movement in the configuration it is today and changing it to a standard T-up intersection at North First and I-70B. So both northbound and southbound movements on North First Street will connect at the same location. Another change would be the movement that goes from North First Street to State Highway 340 currently today in a two-lane one-way configuration there in front of the shopping center. This area we're omitting that through movement to be able to allow two-way traffic on a new frontage road that's going to connect between State Highway 340 and Mulberry Street. This will kind of allow people to be able to get back onto the corridor a little bit more directly and get on to the way they want to go after entering into these businesses along this frontage road. And will also allow a little bit safer movements occurring on State Highway 340. A few other enhancements that we have going on would be adding some slip lanes at the First and Grand intersection, so you don't have to wait for the light to make a movement between I-70B and State Highway 340. So that's another great kind of enhancement. Other things we're kind of adding is certainly adding some additional turn lanes for First and Grand that will allow a little bit more people to be able to get through the intersection during green time for turn lanes, etc. So it does look like we have a couple more questions, so maybe I helped spark some people's thoughts.
No, you did. Actually, we had a great question come in while you were sharing that information. What are the construction hours going to be? And I can tackle that, but I probably want Adam to back me up. But I understand that we talked about Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's kind of, daylight to dusk is the plan. This project also has a couple of, I think it has about 20 days of potential night work in it. Again, that's at the discretion of the CDOT and United Companies team on when we would use those or how we would use those nights. Adam, did I have that right?
You are correct, yes.
Great. Well, tell you what, my guess is there's, oh, go ahead.
I did see another question from Chuck and Robbie there with regards to the current roadway as an integral part of downtown. Will the new enhanced I-70B become a high-speed course through downtown? And the answer is no. Right north of the First Street intersection, the corridor will still be being reduced down to a 35 miles per hour design speed and posted speed limit. And then south of the First and Grand intersection, the lanes will be actually reduced down to 11 foot to do some traffic calming and allow traffic to slow down a little bit, and the perception will cause drivers to slow down and navigate that corridor in a safer manner than what we have today with regards to some of those V-pans, et cetera, going in between the two inner lanes and the outer lane for the corridor.
Perfect, Katie. Another question we had come in yesterday was, how do pedestrians and cyclists access that area through the construction zone? And one of the things that the contractor will be diligent about are what we call MHTs, or methods of handling traffic. And those are plans that'll be created around the different phases, and decisions around traffic control are put in place for how we move pedestrians and cyclists through the zone. Now, I guess we would also encourage you, if there's another way to access your favorite paths that you'd like to get to, that it's always a good idea to do that and to go that way. I know Riverside Parkway is a very well-constructed bike route and pedestrian walking route. So if there's a way to access it without going through the zone, that's always a good idea too, just from a safety standpoint. But that was a great question that came in. Another one I'll share, and I'll reiterate it in case you've joined us late for any reason, the roundabout we're suggesting is temporary for the construction phase of the project. We did have people that came to our open house and said, oh, it's going to be a roundabout, but no, it will still be a signalized intersection. Katie, did I have that right? Did I miss anything you want to add on to that?
No, I think you said it well. It will be a very similar setup as what is today with the signal, with just some alignment improvements that are going to be done with some other enhancements where we have some deficiencies.
So another great question, and back to the temporary roundabout, is, why a temporary one during construction? It will help us move traffic through there. And again, it will slow people down in the work zone. That's what we want to do. Another thing our team is diligently working on is the questions we get around commercial vehicles accessing the area. And so we're working really closely with our team at CDOT that does the freight, and we're going to have information available to truckers and people trying to get deliveries into areas. We'll also work very closely with the businesses who the CDOT team had done a tremendous amount of early public involvement with, on just how we can provide them tools and information they may need to share with their customers, or again, people trying to make deliveries to their business. I think, not trying to cut us off, but let me make sure I didn't miss anything else. All right, I'm going to actually make it, it's an evening. People are probably either getting ready for dinner or just finished. So I will open it to the team to just see if there's any other comments the team likes to make. Elise, I know you're on here. Is there anything you'd like to share?
No, that sounds great. Thanks, Tracy.
I always have one more thing. I know you guys want to cut me off, but I always have one more thing. The other thing that we will be doing through the course of the phases, obviously when we go through big phase changes, we'll have a lot of media coverage that Elise will take care of. We know that yesterday a lot of people found the information out in the paper. And so there'll be lots of places, again, where we'll be putting information that you can engage with us. And we'll have even opportunities, I think, out on the project to show people kind of what the work is that's coming. So keep an eye out on the website, and don't hesitate if you have questions to use that email or that hotline number.
Tracy, another thing we could add is the fact that people can email that email address and get added to a distribution list for our weekly updates for the project, so they can be aware of anything significant happening on the project.
That's a great point, and a very helpful tool, because we like to give you an idea of our progress and then also the work that's coming. All right. Well, team, thank you all for showing up tonight. For everyone who joined us or participated, we appreciate your time and that you were here with us, and stay safe out there and visit the project often. Have a good night.